What's going on, everybody? My name is Christian French, and this is my capstone project presentation over my course design. So, quick overview of my project. I designed a course based on the textbook you see to your right, the NSCA's Essentials of Sports Science. It was a 16-week curriculum, included a syllabus, grading rubrics, module overviews, lectures with recorded videos of me going over presentations, and then quizzes and discussion posts for the assignments. Goals of the course basically inform students about the profession of the sports scientist and what it entails. There's a lot that goes into it. And a few of the topics include periodization, technology implementation, as well as kinetics and force plates, and a whole lot more. So, some of the challenges I ran into was first off, there was just a lot of information to distill and not a lot of time to do it. So, essentially, I had to read the whole textbook chapter by chapter, figure out which topics I really wanted to hone in on, and then distill that full chapter into a shorter lecture presentation. So that was difficult. Lack of a practical component made things a little bit difficult. Obviously, not having an in-person classroom, this being more structured as like an online type of course, made things a little bit tough. I'm more of like a hands-on type of learner. That's kind of my preference. So that really kind of made me push myself in that way. And then explaining information in a practical, easier to understand way. Obviously, some of these concepts are a little bit more complex and complicated. So I wanted to try to distill them into more practical means without, dumbing them down too much so that they lost their whole essence. So that was a challenge. So it's just some things I learned from a few of the chapters: the evolution of the sports scientist and the high performance unit, HPU. So the field of sports science has transitioned from solely an academic position to into the realm of high level sports. Usually when sports science was first created, they were really only doing research within academic institutions. They didn't really have much practical application into real life sport. There was kind of that bridge. There was no bridge to that gap there. And now you're seeing sports scientists work with, NFL, NBA, MLB teams. So that's really transitioned a lot in the past few decades. And then the high performance unit in general. Some people call this the high performance team, high performance model, has grown a lot over the years to gain more expert level positions. So while at first we had, probably less people involved in the team and they were kind of wearing multiple hats, now you're seeing, especially with teams that have more resources, they're going to hire a lot of people, and one person is going to have a lot of expert level knowledge in a certain area, and they're going to have a lot of people that know that instead of having, certain people wear multiple hats. Some cool stuff I found on recovery technologies and routines from the book. A lot of the recovery methods that we see today, especially the newer, kind of fancier ones like cryotherapy, Normatec boots, percussion devices, don't have a ton of positive research backing them. They don't have research saying that they have negative effects, but they don't have necessarily a lot of research saying that they promote recovery and performance. But this doesn't mean that they're useless. They can still have uses. Placebo effect is obviously real, and then practicality is the biggest limiting factor when it comes to recovery. In the book, it talks about a lot of different recovery technologies and how you can design routines. But at the end of the day, your travel schedule, your access to resources and facilities is going to be the biggest limiting factor when it comes to designing like a recovery program. Other things I learned just in general: time management, breaking things down into smaller tasks, tackling one module at a time. For a little bit there, I wasn't really sure if I should try to do all the reading first and then go back, but it came pretty clearly early on that I should just tackle one module at a time, do the reading, make the lecture presentation, make the assignments, and then go on to the next one. And then setting little deadlines and checkpoints to keep me on track. So just putting stuff on my Google Calendar of, okay, I want to have this module done by this day and then this module done by this day, kind of help keep me on track there. Some things that I can apply. I want to continue to dive deeper into technologies like force plates and heart rate monitoring, just because those are things that I'm fortunate enough to have access to in my job. So I really want to um, do a deep dive into those and learn more about those. And then trying to collaborate more with other departments within my job to strive towards operating as like a high performance unit. So obviously, I'm not a sports scientist, but I think collaboration between departments is good for everybody, regardless of your position. Just some general things that I found helpful during the course of this project. Setting the course structure before attacking each week individually. So what I did that I really found helpful was, I knew I had a lot of work to do and it was kind of daunting how much work there was to do and, a pretty strict deadline. I just set the course structure. Okay, made all of my outlines for what I wanted the presentations to look like in a structure wise, did all 16 weeks, did kind of all 16 weeks of the quizzes, what I wanted the structure to look like. Then I kind of had that skeleton in line. So then I just had to do is fill in the information from there. And I think it made it a lot more, made it seem a lot more doable. And then trying to set aside larger blocks of time for areas that required more focus. So when I'm trying to do the readings and then create the lecture presentation, those are usually something that I need a little bit more time to do. So I can really focus and try to distill that information into something that I think is more practical versus when I didn't have as much time, but I still needed to work on it. Things that needed to that required a little bit less focus, like the module overview. Okay, this module is about this. These are kind of the learning objectives, and then working on just a couple like quiz questions here and there from the notes I took over the lecture that were applicable to the chapter in question. And then caffeine, obviously, always helpful. Things I would do differently, I would still, although I think I planned decently for the amount of work, I think I could still do a better job. Obviously, busy with work and stuff like all you guys are, but I think I could still plan a little bit better. I think getting the structure in place first helped, but I think I wasted a little bit too much time just kind of figuring out where to start instead of just starting and then figuring it out later. And then in an ideal world, obviously, I would prefer a more practical setting, but I think that just kind of highlights the challenges of teaching more of an online course. So I think it kind of gave me a different perspective there. Some concluding thoughts. Would I make another course? I think I would. One thing that I would probably change, obviously, this is for a legitimate degree. So I had to choose a textbook. I think if I wanted to make a course, I would probably just kind of make the course from doing my own research instead of basing it specifically off a textbook. So it didn't have to be quite as rigid and maybe allow for a little more creativity. But I think I'd probably do it and then try to sell it for some money. I wouldn't necessarily be looking to teach it at a university unless that opportunity came up. Would I take the actual CPSS exam? I'm not sure. I think I would need a little bit more time to study. Obviously, 8 weeks is a short time. I know a couple other people in this course are doing it, so shout out to them. But maybe in the future, I'm a strength and conditioning coach. I'm not really looking to go into solely a sports science role, but that doesn't mean that it's not a useful certification to have. So that's my capstone presentation wrap up. Thank you for watching.